Very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1 for the News First team. I'm Mariam Gadavijaya. Before we head on to our stories in detail, here is a look at your headlines.
Former President Sirisena, Hemasiri, Pujit, Nilantha and Sisira are guilty of violating fundamental rights. Supreme Court orders them to pay compensation to Easter attacks victims. Maha season impacted by diseases affecting rice cultivations. Electricity tariff hike comes into effect from the 15th of January. CEB to submit a report to PUCSL in a month. 75th National Independence Celebration to cost 200 million rupees. Sri Dalanda exhibition to be held in March.
කතිකරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ උපදෙස් මත ලක්වාසී ජනතාවට තමන්ගේ ආගමික උතුම් මල්කඩ දළදා වහන්සේ සියසින් බලා ගන්නට අපි අවස්ථාව ලබා දෙනවා.
Finance Ministry tells Election Commission there is no issue in releasing funds for the election.
On to your lead story tonight, a 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that former President Maithripala Sirisena and others had violated fundamental rights by failing to prevent the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks, despite having credible information of an imminent attack. Former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando, former IGP Pujit Jayasundara, former Chief of National Intelligence Sisira Mendes and former State Intelligence Service Director Nilantha Jayawardena were the other respondents. 11 fundamental rights petitions were filed with the Supreme Court claiming that the Sri Lankan administration failed to prevent the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks despite having information about an imminent attack. They were taken up in the presence of Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya and Justices Buwanekalu Vihare, LTB Dehidenia, Muthu Fernando, S. Thureiraja, A.H.M.D. Nawaz and Shiran Gunaratna. The Supreme Court bench delivered the ruling for almost 1 hour and noted that former President Maithripala Sirisena, former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando, former IGP Pujit Jayasundara, former Chief of National Intelligence Sisira Mendes and former State Intelligence Service Director Nilantha Jayawardena had violated Article 12(1) of the Constitution relating to equal protection of the law. They also violated Article 14(1)(e) of the Constitution relating to the freedom to practice religion. Former President Maithripala Sirisena was ordered to pay a sum of 100 million rupees as compensation. Former IGP Pujit Jayasundara and the former SIS Director Nilantha Jayawardena were directed to pay 75 million rupees each as compensation. Former Defence Secretary Hemasiri Fernando was ordered to pay 50 million rupees as compensation and former CNI Sisira Mendes was directed to pay 10 million rupees as compensation. The Supreme Court ordered that 1 million rupees should be paid as compensation to every person that died in the attacks, while those who were injured are to receive 500,000 rupees per person as compensation. The Supreme Court ordered the state to take appropriate disciplinary action forthwith against the former SIS Director Nilantha Jayawardena for his lapses and failures. The Attorney General was ordered to report to court on the progress within 6 months. Then Prime Minister and current President Ranil Wickremesinghe was named as a respondent as well. However, on the 26th of September 2022, the Supreme Court decided that according to Article 35(1) of the Constitution, a case cannot be maintained against a sitting president, and Ranil Wickremesinghe is entitled to immunity as the current president.
What were the key observations made by the Supreme Court in its ruling?
The Supreme Court noted that Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Nilantha Jayawardena, the then Director of State Intelligence Service, had received information from a highly delicate source via WhatsApp on the 4th of April 2019 to the effect that the National Tawhid Jamaat leader and his associates were planning to carry out a suicide terror attack on important churches, and they have conducted a reconnaissance of the Indian High Commission. Jayawardena had told the court that immediate action was taken by him to instruct responsible officers to transform the above information into intelligence in order to establish the true identities of persons. However, the Supreme Court had said it is strange as to why the true identities of persons have to be established, as the identities of these extremist elements had long been established. Nilantha Jayawardena cannot put forward a facile argument that the intelligence received on the 4th of April 2019 was nothing more than mere information. The court also said that Nilantha Jayawardena and then IGP Pujit Jayasundara were both aware of the potential threats by Zahran, his cohorts and the National Tawhid Jamaat long prior to the Easter Sunday attacks. Even the Defence Secretary cannot plead ignorance of the radicalization of Zahran and his complicit partners, as he had continued to receive reports regarding this from November 2018. The Supreme Court that Easter Sunday was just a few weeks away when the heads-up about the imminent attack came from India, but there was little alertness or perspectiveness shown by officials to carry out any measures to safeguard any of the churches in the country. Court noted that Nilantha Jayawardena committed unpardonable lapses, quite unbecoming of a super sleuth who should be heading such a powerful department under the Ministry of Defence. The court noted that the IGP should have shared the intelligence information received with senior DIGs and other relevant parties in the police service, especially the DIG of the Eastern Province, as there was a dry run on the 16th of April 2019 in Kathankudi. This failure to notify his men in the provinces is quite a flagrant violation of his police duties, and the IGP, as the head of the police service, should have taken all necessary steps to keep the police and also the political leadership informed. Court also noted that Chief of National Intelligence Sisira Mendis failed in his duties by turning a blind eye to the onerous responsibilities attendant upon his office. The Supreme Court noted that under the presidency of the former President Maithripala Sirisena, the National Security Council meetings were sporadic and not regular, and a notorious misappreciation of the duties and functions of the Minister of Defence has led to an appalling lack of appreciation of importance of the National Security Council. According to the court ruling, despite the 1999 Gazette, which provided for the constitution of the NSC, the attendance at the NSC had been determined solely by the President, with no reasons given for the exclusion of key members who should have been an indispensable part of security and intelligence briefings, such as the Prime Minister, State Minister for Defence and the IGP. There was extensive submission that the Prime Minister was kept out of the NSC and was not provided with any information. It also noted that the former President had been remiss in this duty of keeping abreast of the latest information on Zahran and his associates. This dismal failure on the part of the former President Maithripala Sirisena resulted in disastrous consequences for this country, and not only lives were lost and properties destroyed, but interracial tension and inter-ethnic hatred began to raise their ugly heads, causing the very fabric of this nation to be broken and become fragile.
One cannot appeal against this ruling. This ruling cannot be reversed again. The ruling was delivered by a 7-judge bench. You may be the president or another senior official. You must comply with tour duties in a proper manner. This case will set the precedent for future legal proceedings as well. This ruling clearly showed that even if you are the president, politicians or state officials, if you neglect your duties, you cannot get away with it.
The overnight decision made by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government to ban the use of chemical fertilizers placed the local farmers in a crisis, losing out on 2 harvest seasons. This harvest season is also in crisis due to the rapid spread of discoloration of rice plants. The Agriculture Department believes that substandard fertilizers could be the cause for this issue. However, industry experts note that when the proper dose of fertilizer isn't used, the yellowing of plants could be seen.
According to the latest reports, almost every single rice cultivation in Sri Lanka is turning yellow. What's happening across rice fields is that the rice plants are showing yellowish leaves and stunting. This is the current situation at a paddy cultivation in Ampara.
They said that the best fertilizer was given. If anyone can claim that this field will provide a good yield, come have a look. I pawned my motorcycle and chain for this. I am now left with debt. There are 60 acres here. It's been 2 months since the leaves started turning yellow. We have not seen any growth.
The matter was discussed at the Galloel Left Bank Agrarian Movement meeting.
The Department of Agriculture had made some details available regarding this. One reason is the damage caused by the nematodes. The reason for that is because substandard compost was used for the cultivation that has attributed to the spread of the nematodes across Sri Lanka. In addition, we need to add nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. However, during the past 3 seasons, we only added phosphorus and potassium. We did not have urea to add nitrogen. Though we have urea at the moment, there is a shortage of the other two. Due to the prices, farmers are purchasing them. We wanted quality compost. Shouldn't those who force this type of fertilizer on us be held responsible? Who is the responsible person? There is an issue regarding urea. We assume that the levels are too much for the soil here. Our third harvest is also gone. The company gets the certification for its best product, but what they give us is something below standard. 1 kilogram contains 800 grams of sand.
Professor Anurukumara from the University of Ruhuna elaborated on this situation.
The main issue was that the fertilizer was not delivered on time as per the accepted ratio. This also said that the nematodes are spreading. If nematodes have affected the cultivation, it can spread rapidly. It could also affect the next season, resulting in a low yield this season. The Maha season delivers 65% of the local rice requirement. Therefore, if we fail this season, it will be the third continuous Maha season that has failed in the country. That would lead to a rice shortage, forcing us to import rice.
This was the response given by the minister.
We have intervened and given the necessary powers. We will control this situation. We believe that we can bring this situation under control.
An overnight decision was taken to ban chemical fertilizers, disregarding the continuous warnings given by the experts, intellectuals and the farmers. Is it appropriate to waste more time while this crisis spreads to all rice cultivations? If immediate actions are not taken, the Maha season and the local farmer will face a serious crisis.
The Ceylon Electricity Board announced that the electricity tariff will be increased with effect from the 15th of January as per the decision reached by the Cabinet of Ministers. CEB General Manager Rohan Seneviratna told reporters that the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka will be apprised of the data on the tariff hike within a month.
The Cabinet of Ministers approved the tariff system for 1 month. Thereafter, the data will be handed over to the Public Utilities Commission. They would pursue the data, and if there are any concerns, they would discuss the matter. They can review the data by the 15th of February and tell us about the tariff system. If there is a reduction, we will make the reduction with effect from the 1st of January.
As per the proposal that was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, the fixed rates for domestic electricity units will also be increased from the 15th of January. For units 0 to 30, fixed rate increased from 120 rupees to 400 rupees. For units 31 to 60, fixed rate increased from 240 rupees to 550 rupees. For units 60 to 90, fixed rate increased to 650 rupees. For units 90 to 180, the fixed rates increased to 1,500 rupees. The fixed rate of 1,500 rupees for over 180 units has been increased to 2,000 rupees. The fixed rates for places of worship has also been amended. For units 0 to 30, fixed rate increased from 90 rupees to 400 rupees. For units 31 to 90, fixed rates increased from 120 rupees to 550 rupees. For units 90 to 120, fixed rate increased to 650 rupees. And for units 120 to 180, the fixed rates increased to 1,500 rupees.
As per the proposed tariff hike, the rate of 214 rupees has been increased to 753 rupees and the rate of 677 rupees has been increased to 2178 rupees. This is how the domestic rates will change. The industrial tariff will also be increased. The rate of 20 rupees will be increased to around 26 rupees. The daytime rate of 34 rupees and 50 cents will increase to 40 rupees. The impact on the industry is low. If we don't amend the tariff system, the revenue per unit is 29 rupees and 14 cents and that is a huge deficit.
The Ceylon Electricity Board says that if the tariffs are not increased, it would lead to a crisis.
We are in a serious financial crisis in order to make these payments. The employees at the 4 distribution divisions of the CEB have been using their own money to pump diesel to the breakdown vehicles. The community sees the CEB personnel as the wrongdoers. I will stand by the employees. Some divisions have not received funds for days because we need to make payments for coal shipments. One shipment was anchored off Norotchole for a day because we couldn't make the payment. The CPC has informed us that they would not deliver fuel if we do not pay up front. The government was making payments. However, we were told that from the 1st of January, we will have to make those payments. If we keep selling units at a loss, the CEB and the country will face a crisis. We have made the tariff increase to minimize damage.
The Sri Lankan government is preparing to celebrate the 75th National Independence Day at a cost of 200 million rupees.
We received an estimate of 575 million rupees for these celebrations. Before we came here today, the Home Affairs Ministry nearly had around 20 to 25 meetings at the Presidential Secretariat. Out of these meetings, we were able to bring down the estimated cost from 575 million rupees to 200 million rupees. This 200 million rupees will be spent from the relevant budget allocations given to several state ministries. In addition to this, we have several donors and sponsors from the private sector of the country. We are proud to announce today that together with their support, we have prepared everything to celebrate our 75th Independence Day. This year, the theme for the Independence Day will be Namo Namo Mata. Accordingly, the government has planned to kickstart the celebration from the 2nd of February, and as the first phase of it, we will follow religious observances in line with the Independence Day celebration. We hope to organize this year's celebration highlighting the government's policy program for the next 25 years. Instead of changing the country's policy program from time to time, from president to president, we are working with the primary objective to formulate a national policy program for the next 25 years.
ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්තියක් සම්පාදනය කිරීම මූලික අරමුණක් විදිහට අපි කටයුතු කරනවා.
The State Minister of Home Affairs also said that they have organized an exhibition of the sacred tooth relic to coincide with the Independence Day celebration.
මේ වැඩසටහන ආරම්භ කරන්න අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙලා ඉන්නේ.
To kickstart this year's independence celebration, we have organized a special religious puja on the 2nd at the Temple of Tooth Relic. And on the 4th of March, we are hoping to exhibit the sacred tooth relic to all devotees from Sri Lanka and around the world. This was proposed by the President, and we hope to give an opportunity to Sri Lankans to witness the sacred tooth relic.
වහන්සේ සියසින් බලා ගන්නට අපි අවස්ථාව ලබා දෙන්න.
Sri Lanka's central bank governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said it was possible an IMF agreement could come later in January, but added it all depends on other parties and creditors really have to make that decision. Dr. Veerasinghe said the central bank has urged China and India to agree a write-down of their loans as soon as possible. The governor of Sri Lanka's central bank told BBC Newsnight it was in the interest of all parties to act quickly. Veerasinghe said the sooner they give the finance assurances, that would be better for both sides, as a creditor and as a debtor. He said that Sri Lanka cannot continue to not meeting the obligations, adding that it was not good for investor confidence in Sri Lanka. The US ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, said the greater onus to move was on China as the biggest bilateral lender. The ambassador said for the sake of Sri Lankan people, the US hopes China is not a spoiler as Sri Lanka proceed to attain this IMF agreement.
Chargé d'affaires of the Chinese embassy in Colombo, Hu Wei, told reporters in Kandy that there is no hidden agenda in China's support towards Sri Lanka.
中国中央政府 在去年宣布了对斯里兰卡的5亿元人民币的无偿援助。
Last year, around 900 billion in Chinese currency was donated to Sri Lanka and its people. In addition, we donated 10,000 metric tons of rice and 9,000 metric tons of diesel. We have also donated school uniform materials for school students. Donations were also made by the Chinese temples and people. No matter what issue arises, China will be a friend to Sri Lanka. Once a Sri Lankan asked me why China is helping Sri Lanka so much. He asked what was the hidden agenda and what we expected. I said there is no greater happiness in China than helping others. China gains happiness in supporting Sri Lankans.
人民是我们最好的朋友，所以如果能够帮助你们，这就是对我们最好的回报。
1,600 disadvantaged families from the Pathadumbura and Akurana divisional secretariats in Kandy were given dry ration packs donated by the Chinese Buddhist community.
How will Sri Lanka's debt restructuring impact the Colombo Stock Exchange? CSA Chief Dilshan Veerasekara elaborated at an event on Wednesday.
I think a debt restructure more or less is a given in terms of our foreign currency loans, and I think that we all know is going to happen. Now, when that happens, what component or what percentage of a haircut it is, we don't know. But I think that has been digested by market already, right? So I don't think that's really going to impact the investor sentiment positively or negatively, because it's, in my opinion, priced in. A domestic debt restructure, if it comes in, could possibly be positive to the market. So, because fixed income is the asset class that will get impacted, meaning government securities would have that haircut. So I don't really see a negative impact of a domestic debt restructure on the Colombo Stock Exchange. It might actually end up being slightly positive, because you might have investors saying, I'll move into asset class that doesn't have a haircut as opposed to being an asset class that has.
He also spoke about the impact on investment decision trends with local government elections coming up.
If you look at the past, I think we've had periods of lulls running up to elections, if they were general elections or presidential elections. The provincial council elections have never really impacted market that much. So I don't think that the current provincial council elections that are supposed to be due will really have a big impact to the market. I don't believe it will, because it is not change in government per se that is happening. But in previous instances, general elections and presidential elections, run-ups to those, have created a bit of a lull or lower trading activity in market, and waiting the post-result outcome. Markets have sort of gone either direction depending on how markets read it, but I don't think the provincial council elections would really have an impact.
Will elections be held before the 10th of March 2023? 58 days more.
In more headline-making news tonight, Treasury officials have confirmed to the National Election Commission that the funds required for the election will be made available without any disruption.
Commissioner General of Elections Samantri Ratnayaka, speaking to Newsfirst, said officials from the Treasury were summoned to the National Election Commission on Wednesday to make inquiries regarding the views that were being expressed, claiming that the funds for the election will not be available. The Treasury officials have noted that as the election is a constitutional matter, the funds will be provided without any disruption. The Chairman of the Election Commission and its members, the Commissioner General of Elections and the Chief Financial Controller of Election had also attended this meeting. The chairman of the National Delimitation Committee, Mahinda Deshapriya, says only the court has the right to decide on delaying an election.
The letter issued by the Minister of Public Administration is just a piece of paper. It has no right to issue such a letter. In addition, the district returning officers, deputy and assistant returning officers can accept bonds because that letter is just a piece of paper. The Election Commission has launched a mechanism to hold the election. The election can only be delayed by a court ruling or by passing an act in the parliament. There is no other mechanism to delay an election.
Political parties and groups are continuing to place bonds to contest the local government election. The SLPP placed bonds for the Nuwara district with the participation of SP Disanayaka.
We have given our blessings to call for an election. We are waiting for the election to take place so that we can secure a resounding win.
A group also expressed their displeasure about lighting crackers during the placement of bonds.
There are 2 heart patients at home. Another person is pregnant. Our house is some 100 meters away from the election office. There is a law that prohibits raising flags 200 meters from the election office. Where is the law when they come here and light crackers?
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna placed bonds for the Badulla district, and this was the response by the SLPP General Secretary to the letter issued by the Secretary of Public Administration.
Cabinet Mandale kiyanne ape pakshe nemei.
The cabinet is not our party. We do not know what decision was made by the cabinet. I am told that the secretary had withdrawn the letter in question. As a political party, we are bound to following the directives of the Election Commission during the period of an election.
Commission sabave niyamayan saha niyogyan anuව katayutu karanna.
The Samaki Jana Balawegaya placed their bonds for the Badulla district today.
Even cabinet ministers placed bonds during the past few days. After placing bonds, they have gone to the cabinet meeting to cancel this election. How shameless are they to do so? Not that they don't have enough funds to have this election, they know that they are going to have a landslide defeat here. This is why they want to delay these polls. Majority in the cabinet are from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, the same party which Sagarakaria Vasam is placing bonds for. He tells one thing behind doors and tells the complete opposite of it outside while placing bonds. We know that the people are cautiously observing these remarks. Therefore, it is clear that Sagarakaria Vasam has failed today.
The National People's Power placed bonds to contest in the Anuradhapura district. The National People's Power placed bonds under the symbol of the compass to contest in the Matara district.
The people will make a historic decision. This is the first step in realizing the aspirations of the people.
The National People's Power also placed bonds to contest in the Polonnaruwa district. The Global Sri Lankan Congress placed bonds to contest for 4 local government institutions, including the Gampa Municipal Council. Several Aragale activists were also present.
With the 2022 Aragale, the people called for a system. We are here to nurture that system change. We are also here to show that the people are ready to make use of that opportunity.
In the meantime, opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says the Sri Lanka First concept must secure success through a smart Sri Lanka.
The 69th school bus under the Sakpala program was donated to the Buttala Dutugamna Central College. This bus is valued at 5 million rupees. The opposition leader celebrated his birthday with the students at the school.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
අපි ඔප්පු කරලා තියෙනවා වැඩක් කරන්න තනතුරු තානාන්තර අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. අලුත් විදිහට හිතලා නූතනවාදී රටක් ගොඩනගන්නට.
We have proven that you do not need positions to do something good. We need to think fresh and make a modern change in the education system of the country. We need to be tech smart. We need to introduce the latest technology to the schools. I wish to announce that I will take the leadership to bring smart education revolution to Sri Lanka.
සුහුරු අධ්‍යාපන විප්ලවය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමේ වගකීම සහ නායකත්වය මම බාර ගන්නවා කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Human Rights Watch in its World Report 2023 on Thursday says the change of presidents of Sri Lanka in 2022 did not lead to any improvement in the country's human rights records. During 2022, thousands of Sri Lankans took to the streets after years of misrule, impunity and corruption undermined the rule of law and contributed to a severe economic crisis that threatened millions. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, long implicated in grave rights violations, stepped down in July. However, the new president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, cracked down on largely peaceful protests, imprisoned activists and disregarded calls for justice for past violations. Meenakshi Ganguly, South Asia Director at Human Rights Watch, said that President Ranil Wickremesinghe responded to calls for reform and accountability with repression. However, the foreign partners that Sri Lanka needs to help address its economic crisis should insist of fundamental human rights reforms and respect for the rule of law. In the meantime, taking to Twitter, SLPP MP Namal Rajapaksa raised concerns about Canada's sanctions on 4 individuals, including Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He tweeted, "The LTTE recruited child soldiers and indiscriminately killed civilians and government officials from all ethnicities. Sri Lanka endured this atrocity for 3 decades." The tweet added, "While Canada has a sovereign right to decide, it is sad to see double standards and hidden agendas when assessing facts." In other local developments, the Student Union of the University of Kelaniya protested on Thursday evening opposite the university premises. The Student Union of the University of Kelaniya protested by lighting torches against government oppression. They demanded the immediate release of student activists, including IUSF convener Wasantha Mudalige.
The Socialist Youth Union engaged in a silent protest opposite the Ministry of Environment against attempts being made to sacrifice Sri Lanka's ecosystem to ease the debt burden. They were supported by several environmental unions.
There are
plans to purchase our forest and ocean systems. They are in talks to purchase our forest system for $1 million. That does not include the trees alone, but everything embedded with it. They will have control over it. Nepal and Brazil have seen this, and Sri Lanka will have to face the consequences. The Ranil Rajapaksas are preparing to sell off our oxygen and forests for dollars to achieve their narrow political goals.
ඉතුරුලා තියෙන මේ ජානමය සම්පත් ටික මේ අපේ වන සම්පතත් කිසිදු ගේමක් නැතුව තමන්ගේ පටු දේශපාලන අරමුණෙන් ඩොලර් වෙනුවෙන් විකුණන්න යන්නේ.
On to some news from neighbouring India. As the Rahul Gandhi-led Bharat Jodo Yatra reached Ludhiana, the opposition leader has said that communal harmony is the culture of India. Bharat Jodo Yatra is a movement to unite the voices of the people of India against injustice. Day 2 of the Yatra in Punjab kicked off from Kanna in Ludhiana on Thursday morning. The Yatra will be on a break for a day tomorrow festivities, following which it will be resumed again on the 14th of January and proceed towards Jalandhar. As the Rahul Gandhi-led Bharat Jodo Yatra reached its final leg, Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge wrote to heads of 21 like-minded political parties, inviting them to join the concluding function of the Bharat Jodo Yatra in Srinagar on the 30th of January. Peru's top prosecutor has launched an inquiry into President Dina Boluarte and key ministers over weeks of clashes that have left dozens of people dead.
The officials are being investigated on charges of genocide, qualified homicide and serious injuries. Violence erupted after ex-President Pedro Castillo was arrested in December for trying to dissolve Congress. On Monday, 17 people died in clashes between Castillo supporters and security forces in southern eastern Peru. Dozens more were injured in the city of Juliaca in what was the worst day of violence so far. Many of the victims had gunshot wounds.
In cricket news tonight, India won the 3-match ODI series against Sri Lanka, following a 4-wicket win in the second limited over encounter.
Sri Lankan opener Nuwanindu Fernando scored a half a century on debut before India bundled out Sri Lanka for 215 in the second ODI. Opting to bat, Sri Lankan batters were blown away by Indian bowlers led by Kuldeep Yadav. Chasing 216 runs to win, KL Rahul registered a half a century in India's chase that led them to a 4-wicket win.
And that's a wrap of your news for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Mariam Ganavijaya. Good night and take care.